do you do? I'm Anthony Catella, a St. Charles, Illinois resident since birth. I'm 49 years old and an Army veteran. I conceive myself to be a citizen, soldier, statesman. I hope most of you know who I am. I've been giving several talks over these last few years on YouTube, and I'm happy to do so. It's really a great modicum of presenting to people. I'm pleased to speak with you today, March 20th, 2019. 1 year ago today, I won my first election in my fledgling political career as a committeeman for St. Charles Precinct 18, so it's a special day for me. I was born on March 8th, 1970, so a lot of great things happened for me in March. My father came to town here in 1966 and established a law practice which thrives to this day, and I'm proud to say he was city attorney of this fair city from 1977 to 1981 during the administration of Edward A. Spritt. My mother is a retired school teacher who taught in this school district and out in the country, and she assists my dad at his office. My sister is a school psychologist for the U46 Elgin School District. Now, this might sound like a familiar speech. Last year, in February, when I was campaigning for precinct committeeman, I gave a similar speech at the VFW post in Wheaton. And this year, I'm revising it for this occasion. I'm a college graduate and a post-college graduate with a divinity degree. I attended Quincy University, Quincy College at the time, and I was the second class to graduate with university status. And my degree was in American Studies, graduated in May 1994. After college, I didn't have much job prospects, so I joined the Army. But that's something I always had my sights on anyway. I had always had my sights on being a soldier. I served 5 years active duty in the U.S. Army Military Police Corps. I served 2 actual deployments. The first was Operation Joint Endeavor. While in Germany, my unit, the 554th Military Police Company, the 95th MP Military Police Battalion, deployed from Germany to Tizar, Hungary, to restore peace in the former Yugoslavia after the bloody Bosnian Serb War from 1991 to 1994. I left active duty, and I should like to say that I was awarded the NATO Medal for participation in Operation Joint Endeavor. And I was deployed from Germany to Hungary and Croatia from September 17th, 1996 to April 5th, 1997. I left active duty in 1999. My highest rank achieved in the enlisted ranks was Specialist E4. My highest decoration was the Army Commendation Medal ribbon awarded me by my command, the 258th MP Company of the 519th Military Police Battalion in Fort Polk, Louisiana. I served at that post from 1998 to 1999. And that's my highest award, the Army Commendation Medal. I look upon my time on active duty as the best time in my life. I have long believed the military represents the highest level of citizenship with its 7 core values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I sometimes like to tell the youngsters I meet today to consider military service. It is an interesting fact that only 1 to 2% of our population stands up to take the oath of service and put on the uniform and go forth to serve and protect this great country of ours. So it seems to me that a whole lot of our people depend upon a very few of our people who stand up to defend us in our way of life. What is our way of life that we so cherish? It is peace, freedom, individual liberty, self-government, and the rule of law under God. These are the great pillars of Western civilization. Whether we will continue with this way of life, whether our future will inherit it, depends upon our effort and our energy to maintain what our founding fathers bequeathed to us, a free and united republic under a government of laws and not of men. God has blessed us with abundance and plenty, most of which may well be untapped. May God ever bless America, and may America, in her religious devotion, ever bless the God who watches over her. Yes, I believe in God as a Christian man of faith. Following my time on active duty in the Army, I made the mistake, to enter the studies for the priesthood. I had a strong desire to take up the service of God and combine it with service to country as an Army chaplain. I received a commission in the United States Army Reserves to give me a head start as a chaplain. I really believe, and I still believe, that I could be a great Army chaplain. After I began seminary, but before commissioning, my second actual deployment to which I was sent was Operation Enduring Freedom in October 2001, following the dastardly attack upon our country. I served on this deployment from October 2nd, 2001 to August 2002 at Fort Hood, Texas. And for this, I was awarded the Global War on Terror Service Medal and Ribbon. I did not deploy to Afghanistan or Iraq. Upon the completion of my deployment, my commissioning orders came through on May 22nd, 2002, and I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Army Reserve. And I reached all the way up to the rank of captain, up to the year 2010. And I'm telling you, becoming an Army officer was one of the crowning achievements of my life. I'd always dreamt of it. But I finally also was ordained a Catholic priest in May of 2010 for the Diocese of Alexandria, Ocasio-Cortez. No, just kidding. Alexandria, Louisiana. I know I did some good for 5 years for the people, for God's people down there. But in 2015, I decided I needed a leave of absence because, unhappily, I became unfulfilled in the lifestyle of the priesthood. It's just not for me. It's a very difficult and lonely life, and I tried it. It doesn't work for me. I've been back in my home of record, St. Charles, Illinois, since 2015, finding ways to reorient my life. I'm a part-time employee at Trader John's Army Surplus Store in South Elgin, Illinois. I'm in my 3rd year there, and if this was a congressional office, if that was a congressional office, I'd be entering into my 2nd term. Subtle hint for what comes next, for what you'll hear later on. These people over at Trader John's are great folks. The man who owns it, it's a family business. They're wonderful people. And the man who owns it was at one time, he's retired chief of police for South Elgin, Illinois, and they got a great store up in Rockford. And come on in and see us. And they've been in business for 30 years, and the son will take over. And they're great folks. I'm also a member of St. Charles American Legion Post 342. And a life member of VFW Post 5036 in St. Charles, Illinois. And this year marks the 100th anniversary of the American Legion, and we'll be celebrating American Legion Centenary Day on April 5th, 2019, here in this great city of St. Charles. And in this very room, we will be having our American Legion Ball. And I've been elected to be the speaker. I like to talk, if you haven't noticed already. I've been long interested in politics from a young age. I studied government. My degree is in American Studies, and part of that degree was earned by working as an intern in the office of a state representative, Art Tenhouse, who shared also that office with the state senator, Lord Kent Donahue. This was back in my senior year in college in the spring of 1994. These public servants were good role models to me and very good mentors to me, and I wish them well wherever they may be. I recall coming of age during the election year of 1980. I remember watching intently the Carter-Reagan debate and conducting my own election amongst family, friends, and schoolmates. I drew ballots and made a ballot box. I recall the Iranian hostage crisis as the first geopolitical event that I became aware of as a young man. I was 10 years old. By the way, that embassy takeover in the 440-day crisis was the first radical Islamic attack upon this country in 1979. The attack was on American soil because it was our embassy, and every United States embassy everywhere in the world is American soil guarded by United States Marines. The hostage crisis and their glorious return and the election of Ronald Reagan inspired me. Throughout the Reagan era, I was inspired with the zeal to be in the Army and be president. I can always remember, those were back in the days of, was the Be All You Can Be Army. And my friends and I were always inspired by the commercial. The soldiers were paratrooping into an area, and they jumped down in, and recovered their parachutes, and another soldier was making coffee, and he handed a cup of coffee to the first sergeant and said, "Good morning, First Sergeant." But that's more on the funny side, but that was a serious commercial. But I remember watching Reagan give one of his speeches, his State of the Union addresses. And he said, American service members are once again proud to wear their uniforms. And that struck a chord in me. And I thought to myself, maybe one day I can be proud to wear the uniform of my country. And I did. Here's another interesting fact about me. I used to imagine that I was president with my schoolmates. What other young boy would imagine himself president or even want to be president at such a young age? Well, a boy by the name of Caleb Keltner, the young son of the sheriff deputy who was killed in line of duty this past month in Rockford, Illinois. I know this because I read it in an open letter written by his widow. And I would like to pause just a moment for 1 minute for Jacob Howard Keltner, the Kane County Sheriff's Deputy, who died in our service. President Ronald Reagan, well, he gave back to America that can-do spirit that we have always had in this country, the sense that we are all heroes to one another. I think my love of country and my interest in its past, concern for its present, and hope for its future was born in the Reagan era. I caught the inspiration. It is perhaps if I had been born in 1950, and 10 years later in 1960, being a 10-year-old youngster, catching the spirit of the campaign of Senator John F. Kennedy. Believe me, I'm inspired by Mr. Kennedy, even though I'm a generation removed. This town of St. Charles can boast of the fact that in October of 1960, Senator Kennedy, in his campaign for the presidency, came on a campaign swing through Kane County. It was heavily Republican then, and he would joke about the people wanting to click for Dick in the election campaign. And just up the way, where we used to have our Memorial Day programs in town at Baker Memorial Park, it was there on October 25th, 1960 that he spoke, and he walked down Main Street. And then he spoke in front of the Kane County Courthouse in Geneva. Both those places are inspirational rallying points for me. And as a matter of fact, I too gave a speech in the same location where Senator Kennedy spoke during his campaign. That would be on Memorial Day 1989, and I was 19 years old, and I read my Voice of Democracy script, my Voice of Democracy speech that I participated in as a high schooler. During my now 4 years at home, I've recaptured my desire to continue my military service. On August 18, 2018, I'm proud to say that I was commissioned a captain in the Indiana Guard Reserve. It is not as formally federal service, it is state service, but it is service to state and country. Just think, our 50 sovereign states make this a great and sovereign country. I am duty and honor bound to serve my country. Yes, for me it is duty, honor, country. These three hallowed words show me the way to what I ought to be, what I can be, and what I will be. They are my rallying points. They instill within me a temper of the will, a quality of the imagination, a vigor of the emotions, a freshness of the deep springs of life, a temperamental predominance of courage over timidity, the appetite for adventure over love of ease. Thus, filled with strong will, imagination, emotion, deep springs of life, courage and adventure, I am renewed in my youth, not a time of life, but a state of mind. Not to doubt, but to believe. Not to be afraid, but to be self-confident. Not to despair, but to hope. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe the United States of America is a great country, an unselfish country, and a compassionate country. I believe in America because I am proud to be an American. Here I am free, and won't and don't forget the heroes who lived and died to give that right to me. And I'll proudly stand up next to you and defend her still today, because there's just no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Famous and familiar words from Lee Greenwood's wonderful song, God Bless the USA. In the spring of 2016, during the primary election season, I drove over to the Kane County Government Center in Geneva, Illinois, our county seat, and discovered how to become an election judge. I became one by applying and working with Mr. Jim Moorfield. I signed on as a Republican. I am a Republican because I believe in the principles and ideals of faith and freedom, capitalism, wise, frugal, limited government, maximum liberty based upon order with justice under law, a strong economy, and a strong military defense. As an election judge, I worked with Democratic election judges too. We worked in a bipartisan effort to ensure that every voter can register and vote with the confidence that they did their part in electing their own leadership. This also enabled me to be a part of numerous Kane County Republican events. Now this is very compelling for me because it helps me live my faith in America. I believe America is a good country, and I believe in the God who watches over her, and I believe that freedom and liberty are the guidons of our civic virtue and life. And the party of Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan makes me feel good about America. I've met some good people, such as the chairman of the Republican Central Committee of Kane County, Mr. Kenneth Shepro. I was happy to canvass for our late beloved Stan Bond for county clerk. I herewith dedicate this speech to him, and I will now pause 1 minute to his memory. Thank you. I gotta put my watch back on my wrist so time doesn't run away from me. Boy, I almost forgot. I forgot to take off my Nixon Agnew button. I'm a little behind the times. And I had a Humphrey Muskie button, but I gave that one to a lady I met in at the Batavia Public Library. We got to talking politics, and she said, well, she's been a Democrat all her life, and she remembers working for the Humphrey campaign as a committee woman. And I took off my Humphrey Muskie button, and I gave it to her. See, bipartisanship, it works. It's real simple. Just be kind. Our incumbent county clerk, Mr. John Jack Cunningham, was a very considerate man to me, as he had me in his office a year or so ago, and he told and showed me many things. It was almost like show and tell in that office of his. I'm also appreciative for the time I spent with Mr. Tom Hartwell, who ran for judge and is our Kane County Circuit Court clerk. Politics. I heard it said, and for many people, that sounds like a dirty word. And some people say, they break it down this way. They say poly, many, and ticks, many ticks, meaning bad insects or bad folk. Well, it's unfortunate that people have that conception, that negative conception. But really, though, it's a Greek word, politics is, for polis, or city-state. In fact, polis is the Greek word for city, from which we derive the word politics, the science or method by which to arrive at the best possible life for everyone. I believe politics is the moral means by which a good man or woman can accomplish much worthiness for their fellow citizens. Politics should not be corrupt, as it is in many ways. American politics must be continually cleansed to restore the confidence of the American people. We are a people, I tell you, who deserve to be led by leaders whose heart is pure, whose goal is high. This is how I've always borne myself, with bravery, with charity, and with prayer to Almighty God. I'm in politics with the high road conception of politics, and that is to do the deeds which will accomplish that which is good, decent, and just and right in God's sight. If persons are in politics who do not have this conception, then they need to leave and go be gangsters. Today, a year after my election to precinct captain, St. Charles 18, I can say to you that I have done and continue to do the three things that have always motivated me: military service, ministerial service, and public service. I am a citizen, soldier, statesman. A statesman is one who is in politics to use the moral means at his command to achieve moral ends for his people. A politician is one who knows human nature and channels it to accomplish a large and definite purpose which redounds to the common benefit of all of our people. On November 19th, this past year, and November 19th is always the anniversary date for Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and I urge all of you to familiarize yourself with it. I have it memorized. Anyway, it was on November 19th this past year that I was appointed by Chairman Shepro, our Kane County Republican chairman, as the new precinct committeeman for St. Charles 18. And after garnering 100 signatures of registered Republicans, I only needed 10 to be on the ballot in last March's Republican primary, I was elected on March 20th, 2018, 1 year ago today. Of course, it was easy to get elected. I didn't have an opposition, which I always kind of feel a little guilty about that, because I think it kind of violates one of my political creeds, which is no one in a democratic republic, in a Republican form of government such as ours, a representative form of government, should ever run for an office unopposed. But I did. On election day 2016, on election day, November 6, 2018, this past election, this past midterm, I stood outside my polling place in my precinct, according to the spot, according to law. I was a good distance enough away from the polling entrance. And I certainly wasn't politicking for any party. But I stood there. I felt it was my duty as a precinct committeeman to stand outside my precinct polling place and greet and congratulate my fellow precinct citizens for coming out to exercise their right to vote. The voter is the foot soldier for our democracy, and the ballot is his or her sword. Since America's founding, voting is one of the core responsibilities of citizenship. Samuel Adams, my favorite beer, but also Samuel Adams, the father of the American Revolution and a signer of the Declaration of Independence, here's what he said about voting in 1781, the year we won our independence from England. Let each citizen remember at the moment he is offering his vote that he is not making a present or compliment to please an individual, or at least he ought not so to think, or at least he ought not so to do, but that he is executing one of the most solemn trusts in human society for which he is accountable to God and his country. My fellow citizens, today I announce to you my next step in politics, and that is to be a candidate for the 14th Congressional District of our great and sovereign state of Illinois. To become an official candidate for Congress, I must garner well over 1,000 signatures to be on the ballot for the March 2020 primary, 1 year from now, the Republican primary. I am not the only candidate this time, and that is to be expected. See, I got my wish. And I wish my fellow Republicans, who are also running, much luck. Not too much, you understand. They are, to name the ones I know, Senator Jim Oberweis, Representative Alan Skillicorn, and Mr. Matt Quigley. To them I say, I will follow the 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of thy fellow Republican. If I could gain 100 signatures for committeeman, I can surely gain the needed for congressman. I have enlisted the help of about 25 people who have indicated their willingness to assist me in this great effort. As a candidate for Congress, I have 4 points of leadership. I have a 4-point program of leadership. Point 1, the humble use of power. The humble use of power. If a man can accept, or if a man or a woman can accept power as a gift and a charge from someone else, they're all right. But if they think for a moment that they're the sole author and wielder of the power, then they don't belong in a republic, they belong in a dictatorship. I follow the example of George Washington. He knew how to accept power as a charge or trust from somebody else. For example, the Continental Congress. The Continental Congress appointed him to be the commander of the Continental Army in 1775. And when the Revolutionary War was over and won, he stepped down and became a private farmer citizen again. So he knew how to use power and how to give it back, to use it to accomplish a purpose, and then how to return it to the people from whence he received it, from whom he received it. You know, he even withstood pressure to take control of the fledgling country as a military man. That was what's known as the Newburgh Conspiracy. But he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take over as a military dictator. And the second time he accepted power was when he was unanimously elected to become the first president of the United States in 1789. And upon completion of his second term in 1797, he refused a third term and stepped down to allow other men to run and be elected. So the humble use of power. Secondly, term limits. Term limits. All office holders, appointed or elected, should have term limits. If an elected official cannot do effectively 1 or 2 beneficial deeds in 1 or 2 terms, then I just think that they're either ineffective or the system is corrupt. And good people can differ on this, but let us not forget the example of George Washington. However, for congressional representatives, a term limit of 4 terms should be enough. This would equal 8 years, the same amount of years for the president. Can anyone think of a higher example than George Washington? Perhaps another general-term president, Dwight D. Eisenhower. It was Ike who said, political health is endangered if one party, by whatever means, becomes permanently or too entrenched in power. He said this in 1952, and that was when the Democrats had been in the White House for 20 years, beginning with Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1932. Of course, well, we'll just stick to the text here. I was thinking of something to add, but we'll just stick to this text. Number 3, bipartisanship. Bipartisanship. Though we have a 2-party system in this country, which George Washington incidentally counseled against, we must strive to be bipartisan in our governing efforts. I have written what has now become a 42-page talk on the partisan divide in this country, which I hope to speak at some point during the campaign to an audience. If you haven't noticed, the split between our 2 parties makes it very difficult to govern or to reach any kind of consensus. I run for Congress to restore the common sense of consensus government in Washington. Common sense? In Washington, D.C., amongst those people called politicians? Well, that sounds as common as a 4th of July blizzard in South Carolina. Partisanship is necessary in a political campaign, but when the campaign is over and the candidates with the majority of votes are declared to be the winners, then we've reached the water's edge. Partisanship ends, and cooperation with the elected leadership begins. This is not without a loyal opposition, but it must be without the deep and abiding divisions which scar our union and block progress. And number 4, order with justice under law. Order with justice under law. The good life depends upon our respect for order with justice under law. We are a government of laws and not of men, meaning we have the rule of law, not the rule of the mob. There is no grievance, said Abraham Lincoln, fit for the redress of mob law. The legislators of the law are the same citizenry who live under the law. A wise people remember and live by the highest law, which begets the highest order. And this is from the Holy Scriptures, as clear as the Constitution, only older, indeed eternal. It's God's law I speak of here, my friends. Hear it from the Scriptures. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. Psalm 19, verse 7. The law of God is in the heart. The law of God is in the heart of the just, and none of his steps shall slide. Psalm 37, verse 1. I delight in your law. Psalm 119, verse 70. The law of your mouth is better to me than thousands of coins of gold and silver. Psalm 119, verse 72. Oh, how I love your law. It is my meditation all the day. Psalm 119, verse 97. The law spoken here is the law of God, the divine law. From this we derive the natural law, man's participation in the divine law. This is the jurisprudence upon which our founding fathers set this nation. Our God-fearing founding fathers set this nation upon the divine law. Like Ezra, the holy priest of old, our fathers prepared their hearts to learn the law of God and live by it. For upon the living of the law of God rests our order as a free and just society. And upon that order rests our peace, our progress, and our prosperity. You try any other way, it won't work. This is the true and time-tested way of all organized and ordered societies. My fellow citizens, as I march forward, as I continue to gain and earn the respect of each of you, my fellow countrymen, I continue to gather unto myself the light of my faith that we are a good country, a true country, and a beautiful country. Yes, we are, from precinct to president, from every mountainside, from sea to shining sea. And this faith guides me onward to be a part of the greatest government ever conceived by the genius of man and blessed by the providence of God. My name is Anthony Catella, and I'm running for Congress. Thank you very much.